The Nuts and Bolts of Writing, Season 2, a podcast where we talk about literature, the ins and outs of writing, and how to actually start writing. Hi, everyone. Today it's just me again, Fortunatus Games, the host of this podcast. Today we'll be reviewing one of my favorite books, Philip Roth's The Counterlife. Tete de Punk and I had previously reviewed this book 2 years ago, but I feel like reviewing it by myself would result in a more streamlined book review. The Counterlife is one of Philip Roth's lesser known works. Written in 1986, it is the fourth novel to feature Roth's fictional novelist, Nathan Zuckerman. A string of what-ifs, this novel explores the thin line between reality and fiction and the role of fiction in writers' lives. The Counterlife has 5 sections, each being a variation of the same situation. Part 1, Basil, starts with a diary excerpt written by Nathan. He talks about his brother, Henry, a successful dentist who has been cheating on his wife with his assistant. Unfortunately, Henry has a serious heart condition that requires him to take medicine that has made him impotent. The only alternative to this medication is to undergo a dangerous surgery that could cause his death. Henry talks to Nathan about the possibility of undergoing this surgery since he is unwilling to give up sex, and Nathan tries to convince him not to go through the operation, but Henry goes through the operation and it kills him. In part 2, Henry survives the operation. However, he doesn't resume his life in suburbia as a dentist. Instead, he goes to Israel and lives in a West Bank settlement. His wife, Carol, tells Nathan to go to Israel to convince Henry to come back home. In Israel, Nathan meets several interesting characters, including Jimmy, a fan of his who has written several books of his own. When Nathan eventually meets Henry, Henry tells Nathan that he is not returning to America. Nathan also realizes how he doesn't fit in Israel, despite being told that Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people. However, Nathan feels like he belongs here and never belonged in America. This raises the question of whether the operation and Henry's mid-age crisis prompted him to move to Israel and become a new person. Here's a powerful quote from the book that illustrates this thought. At the crest of the hill outside Agor, Henry pulled the car to the side of the road and we got out to take in the view. In the falling shadows, the little Arab village at the foot of the Jewish settlement looked nothing like so grim and barren as it had a few minutes before when we'd driven down its deserted main street. A desert sunset lends a little picturesqueness even to that cluster of faceless hovels. As for the larger landscape, you could see, particularly in this light, how someone might get the impression that it had only been created in only 7 days. Unlike England, say, whose countryside appeared to be the creation of a god who'd had 4 or 5 chances to come back to perfect it and smooth it out, to tame and retame it until it was utterly habitable by every last man and beast. Judea was something that had left just as it had been made. This could have passed for a piece of the moon to which the Jews had sadistically been exiled by their worst enemies, rather than the place they passionately maintained was theirs and no one else's from time immemorial. What he finds in this landscape, I thought, is a correlative for the sense of himself he would now prefer to affect, the harsh and rugged pioneer with that pistol in his pocket. Nathan also meets the settlement's leader, who talks about the importance of living in Israel. Nathan eventually gives up on convincing Henry to return to America. In part 3, Nathan flies back to America from Israel and encounters Jimmy on the flight. Jimmy says he has smuggled a grenade and gun onto the flight and says he will use them to send a message to the public about Jews no longer being tied to their traumatic history. Security catches wind of this and interrogates Nathan and Jimmy, believing they are working together. Part 4 represents another story thread. This time, Nathan is the impotent brother. He has accepted his sexlessness, but is eventually tempted by Maria, an English expat. As he interacts with her, he starts thinking of undergoing the operation. He says it will allow him to reach his dream of marrying Maria, adopting her daughter, and moving to the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, the operation fails and Nathan dies. Part 5, called Christendom, is about the married life of Maria and Nathan. In this part of the novel, they have moved to England and are staying with Maria's mother, who appears to be anti Semitic and resents Nathan. Nathan brings this up to Maria, who brushes it aside and says that her mother just doesn't like the fact that Nathan is American. Nathan's anxieties about his and Maria's incompatibility explode at a restaurant where Nathan believes a woman at the restaurant is being anti Semitic. Nathan raises the issue to Maria, who says he is being oversensitive. The novel ends with the couple breaking up through a series of letters. In one of the letters, Maria complains to being in Nathan's book and says the book version of her is nothing like her real self. She also blames Nathan for giving them a bad ending, although he had the power to ensure everything worked out well. As she says, "No, I won't do it. I will not be locked into your head in this way. I will not participate in this drama for the sake of your fiction. Oh, darling, the hell with your fiction." Christendom was definitely my favorite part of the book. The dialogue was on point, shocking, funny, thoughtful, and emotional. It also explored the themes of Jewish identity assimilation into non Jewish society, as represented by Nathan's relationship with Maria. If there is something I have to complain about, I would say the first few sections are rather boring and can be simplified. I also feel the book may have been more streamlined if it was only about Nathan and Maria. The stuff with Henry could have been in a separate book since it was too different from the Nathan and Maria storylines. Overall, I would give The Counterlife 4 out of 5 stars.